When I was a kid, Halloween was a magical time of the year. My friend Mike and I couldn't wait to don our costumes, armed with pillowcases for candy and a sense of adventure. It was 1995, and we were 8 years old, eager to roam the darkened streets of our small suburban neighborhood. Little did we know that one Halloween night would haunt our memories forever. We decided to dress as classic monsters. Mike was Dracula, complete with a cape and plastic fangs. I, on the other hand, was the Wolfman, with my face painted with wild fur and claws drawn on my fingertips. Our excitement was infectious, and we set out as soon as the sun dipped below the horizon. As we strolled from house to house, our pillowcases grew heavier with candy. The full moon above us added a surreal touch to the night, casting eerie shadows on the dimly lit streets. Our laughter and shouts echoed in the crisp autumn air as we ran from one house to another yelling, "Trick or treat," and filling our pillowcases with sugary treasures. The night was progressing smoothly until we reached the end of Archer Street, a quiet cul-de-sac with just a few houses. We noticed a peculiar old house at the far end of the street, seemingly untouched by time. Its roof was covered in moss, and the windows were obscured by heavy, tattered curtains. The front yard was overgrown with gnarled trees, and the place exuded an air of profound neglect. "This place is creepy," Mike remarked as he stared at the ominous house. I agreed, but my curiosity got the better of me. "Let's go check it out." We cautiously approached the decrepit mansion, our heartbeats quickening. The sound of our footsteps was muffled by the thick layer of fallen leaves on the ground. We reached the front porch, which creaked ominously under our weight. Mike pressed the rusty doorbell, and the shrill sound cut through the silence of the night. Seconds felt like hours, and just as we were about to leave, the door opened with a slow, agonizing squeak. A tall, elderly woman stood in the doorway, her wrinkled face illuminated by the dim light behind her. "Trick or treat," we stammered, holding up our pillowcases. The woman's eyes were an icy blue, and her crooked smile sent a shiver down our spines. She reached into a candy bowl and handed us each a piece of candy without a word. We thanked her and turned to leave, eager to put some distance between us and the eerie woman. But as we stepped off the porch, she spoke in a voice that seemed to scratch at the very fabric of our souls. "You boys should come back later. I have something special for you." We exchanged nervous glances, our masks unable to hide our trepidation. It felt like a warning, but we couldn't resist the allure of the mysterious woman's invitation. We continued our trick-or-treating, trying to put the unsettling encounter behind us. The night wore on, and our pillowcases were nearly overflowing with candy. Yet, as the evening deepened, a gnawing unease crept over us. It was around 8 p.m. when we decided to return to the woman's house. The neighborhood was growing eerily quiet, and the houses were now dark, their porch lights extinguished. We reached the old mansion once more, our childish fear mingling with a sense of morbid curiosity. The door was ajar, and we hesitantly stepped inside. The interior was dimly lit, with candles casting flickering shadows on the walls. The air was heavy with the scent of incense. In the center of the room, the woman stood beside a table covered in a blood-red cloth. On the table, bizarre items were scattered: animal bones, candles, and a tarnished silver goblet. "Come closer, my children," the woman beckoned. Hesitation gnawed at us, but we approached the table, our senses on high alert. The woman stared into our eyes, her own eyes piercing and intense. "You are both special," she whispered. "I can sense it. You have a unique connection to the spirit world." Our young minds couldn't fully comprehend her words, but her presence sent shivers down our spines. She then produced an antique Ouija board from beneath the table, its wooden surface etched with strange symbols and letters. "Would you like to communicate with the spirits?" she asked, her voice trembling with excitement. We exchanged glances, uncertainty reflected in our eyes, but the allure of the unknown was too strong, and we nodded in agreement. The woman led us through a series of peculiar rituals involving chants and the lighting of more candles. The room grew colder, and a sense of impending doom filled the air. The Ouija board's planchette began to move on its own, spelling out cryptic messages and answering our questions with eerie accuracy. Time seemed to have stood still as we delved deeper into the spiritual realm, our youthful innocence lost in the process. The presence of unseen forces filled the room, and the candles flickered wildly as if disturbed by some invisible presence. Finally, the woman's eyes widened with excitement as she received a message from the spirits. "They have a message for you, my children. They say, beware the darkness, for it follows you. Do not let it consume you." The warning sent a chill through our souls, and we knew it was time to leave. The connection with the spirits had become too intense, and we needed to escape the clutches of the woman and the malevolent forces she had summoned. We rushed out of the old mansion, the sound of our footsteps echoing through the quiet streets. We vowed never to speak of that Halloween night again, but the message from the spirits stayed with us, haunting our dreams. As the years passed, the memory of that Halloween night still haunts me to this day, and the warning has never left me. I often find myself wondering what darkness the spirits had referred to, and how it might still be following me. The Halloween party had been a wild one, filled with eerie costumes, haunted house decorations, and enough laughter to mask the spine-tingling sensation that hung in the air. As the clock ticked past midnight, I realized it was time to call it a night. I pulled out my phone, requested an Uber, and headed to the dimly lit street corner to wait for my ride. The night was chilly, and a thick fog had settled over the city, adding an eerie touch to the Halloween ambiance. The sound of leaves crunching beneath my feet echoed eerily in the stillness. I shivered, more from the creeping unease than the cold, and pulled my coat tight around me. Minutes passed, and the app notified me that my driver had arrived. A sleek black sedan pulled up to the curb, and the driver rolled down the window. The driver was a tall man with a well-groomed beard and a friendly smile. "Hey there," he greeted me. "Are you ready to go?" I nodded and climbed into the back seat, feeling relieved to be out of the foggy night. The interior of the car was warm and inviting, a comforting contrast to the chilling atmosphere outside. The driver glanced at me through the rearview mirror and asked, "So how was the Halloween party?" "It was great," I replied, offering a tired smile. "Lots of costumes, good friends, and a little too much candy." We both chuckled as the car pulled away from the curb and merged into the deserted streets. The driver kept the conversation light, asking about my costume and sharing amusing stories of past Halloween nights. It was a pleasant distraction from the eerie fog that still clung to the city. As we approached a particularly quiet stretch of road, the driver suddenly fell silent. His hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, and his eyes remained locked on the road ahead. I watched him, a sense of unease creeping back in. "Is everything okay?" I finally asked. He didn't respond for a moment, and I could see a sheen of sweat forming on his forehead. "Sorry, just thought I saw something in the road up ahead, my imagination playing tricks on me." I peered through the windshield, but the fog was so thick that it was impossible to make out anything more than a few feet ahead. We continued on, and I tried to shake off the feeling of dread that had settled in the pit of my stomach. Moments later, the driver slammed on the brakes, bringing the car to an abrupt stop. I lurched forward in my seat, grabbing the back of the driver's chair for support. "What happened?" I asked, my heart racing. The driver's voice was shaky as he replied, "I thought I saw someone on the road, a figure standing right in front of the car, but now they're gone." I peered out the windshield, but the fog was so dense that I couldn't see more than a few feet in any direction. The sense of unease grew, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The driver slowly began to accelerate again, and the car crept forward through the fog. I strained my eyes, trying to spot any signs of the mysterious figure he had mentioned. Suddenly, a chilling voice whispered from the back seat, "You shouldn't have come to this party." My heart nearly stopped, and I spun around in my seat to see who had spoken, but there was no one there. I was alone in the back seat, and the driver remained focused on the road ahead. "Did you hear that?" I stammered, my voice trembling. The driver's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, and I could see the terror in his expression. "I did. I thought it was you." Panic set in as I realized that the voice had not come from either of us. The car continued to move through the fog, and the unease in the air had intensified. I knew we needed to get out of this situation, but I had no idea how. The driver's knuckles turned white as he gripped the steering wheel, and he spoke in a hushed tone. "We need to get out of this fog fast. It's not safe here," I agreed, and we both felt a shared urgency to escape whatever unseen presence haunted us. The driver floored the gas pedal, and the car sped through the foggy maze of streets, tires screeching on the pavement. As we left the fog behind and approached the well-lit streets of the city, the sense of dread began to dissipate. But the memory of the chilling voice and the mysterious figure that had appeared on the road continued to haunt me. We reached my destination, and I exited the car with a hurried thank you. The driver offered a nervous smile and wished me a safe journey home. I watched as the black sedan drove away, disappearing into the distance. I walked to my apartment building, my mind still reeling from the eerie events of the night. I couldn't help but wonder what had transpired in that foggy realm and who, or what, the voice belonged to. The unsettling feeling followed me into my apartment, and as I locked the door behind me, I couldn't shake the sense that I had encountered something otherworldly, something that defied explanation. For days, I couldn't sleep, my thoughts haunted by that chilling voice and the unseen figure in the fog. I couldn't help but wonder if I had unwittingly crossed paths with something beyond the realm of the living on that Halloween night. The memory of that eerie journey with the Uber driver would forever linger in my mind, a reminder that sometimes the boundary between reality and the unknown can blur in the most unsettling of ways. I'll never forget the Halloween night that still haunts my nightmares. It was the fall of 2003, and I was 16 years old. My friends and I had gathered at Tim's house, eagerly planning our Halloween mischief. As the night descended, a chilly breeze rustled the fallen leaves, and an eerie mist blanketed the quiet suburban neighborhood. The moon hung low, casting long, sinister shadows. It was the perfect setting for a dare, and that's exactly what we decided to do. Tim had heard rumors about the old, dilapidated house at the end of Oak Street, nestled deep within a thicket of gnarled trees. The house had long been abandoned, and its grim reputation was the stuff of local legend. It was said that the place was haunted, cursed by a terrible tragedy that had occurred decades ago. Our dare was simple: spend an hour inside the decrepit house, from midnight until 1 a.m. The challenge was to overcome our fears, and the one who stayed inside the longest would win a year's supply of bragging rights. We had all heard the stories, but the allure of facing our fears on Halloween night was too tempting to resist. The 5 of us, Tim, Sarah, Jake, Marie, and me, gathered at the front gate, our flashlights illuminating the path to the ominous house. The crooked windows glared at us like vacant eyes, and the overgrown lawn had reclaimed the footpath leading to the door. With pounding hearts and nervous laughter, we pushed open the squeaking front door. The stale, musty smell of abandonment hit us like a punch to the gut. We ventured into the darkened hallway, feeling the weight of the past closing in around us. As we explored the house, our footsteps echoed in the empty rooms. Dust-covered furniture remained untouched, draped in heavy white cloths, like the shrouds of forgotten memories. The unsettling silence was only broken by the sound of creaking floorboards beneath our feet. Tim led the way, taking us deeper into the darkened labyrinth. The hallway led to a decaying kitchen with shattered windows, and a rusted sink sat beneath a cobweb-laden faucet. Jake, ever the jokester, picked up a broken plate and pretended to serve invisible dinner guests. We laughed, but our mirth was tainted with unease. Upstairs, the air grew colder, and the narrow hallway was cloaked in shadows. The portraits lining the walls seemed to watch us with disapproving eyes. Each creak of the floorboards and flutter of a hidden bird's wings sent a jolt of fear coursing through our veins. We eventually found ourselves in a room filled with dusty old children's toys, abandoned dolls, rusted tricycles, and a broken rocking horse. The air grew thick with dread, and the room had a forlorn, abandoned quality. It was then that we heard the whispering, a soft, mournful sound, like a distant lament. At first we tried to ignore it, dismissing it as the wind or a trick of our overactive imaginations. But the whispers grew louder, more insistent, as if they were coming from within the room itself. Sarah shivered and pointed to the corner of the room where an old, weathered mirror stood. It was dusty and cracked, but in its reflection we could see the figures of children playing, laughing, running, and playing hide-and-seek. They appeared to be from a bygone era, their clothes outdated and their faces filled with joy. Yet, their laughter and giggles were tainted by a sense of melancholy. We watched in silent horror as the children in the mirror turned to us, their smiles disappearing. They pointed accusatory fingers, and their voices grew more desperate and anguished, their whispers now unmistakable. Suddenly, Jake let out a blood-curdling scream and fell to the ground, clutching his chest. His eyes were wide with terror, and he gasped for breath. Marie knelt beside him, trying to comfort him, but his face contorted in agony. We rushed from the room, dragging Jake with us. His breathing grew shallow and ragged, and he clung to Marie as if she were his lifeline. The whispers continued to follow us as we fled the haunted room, their voices an unrelenting presence in the air. With trembling hands, we stumbled back into the hallway, where we were met with a sight that sent a chill down our spines. The front door, which had been open when we entered, was now firmly shut, sealed by some unseen force. Panic surged through us as we tugged and clawed at the door, but it refused to budge. The whispers grew louder, reverberating through the house, and the shadows seemed to come to life, twisting and contorting. The air grew heavy with a malevolent presence, and it felt as if the very walls of the house were closing in around us. Hours passed in a blur of fear and confusion, and as the clock ticked toward 1 a.m., we finally heard the front door creak open. The whispers receded, and the shadows retreated, as if the house itself had decided to release us. We stumbled out of the house, our hearts heavy with the weight of the night's terrors. Jake was still pale and trembling, and we rushed him to the hospital where he made a full recovery. We never spoke of the horrors we had witnessed that Halloween night. The dare had gone terribly wrong, and we had unleashed something malevolent in the old house. It was a lesson we would never forget, a lesson that the past has a way of returning, and that some fears are better left unexplored. To this day, the whispers of that night continue to haunt me, a constant reminder of the darkness that can lurk in the most unexpected places. Halloween, once a time of fun and revelry, had forever changed for us, tainted by the knowledge that some dares can lead to terror beyond imagination. Thanks for watching. Don't miss out on more spine-chilling tales. Subscribe now for weekly scares. Hit that red button and join our journey into the unknown.